Hey now, welcome and good day. Thanks for listening to another episode of Growing Your Successful Business, the free podcast about all things small business. And before we get to our guest today, I'll just remind you guys listening that we are now available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, Breaker, many more. Don't be afraid to share this with a friend or an associate or a family member or somebody who owns or runs a small business. And by all means, subscribe, share, review, all the good stuff you can do on podcasts through iTunes and Google Podcasts and Android and all that good stuff. I'll also remind you briefly here, my contact information, you can find all my stuff at growingyoursuccessfulbusiness.com or brianlharding.com. Links to all the listening platforms can be found there. You can also email me at brian@brianlharding.com. And today we're super excited. We have an overjoyed Samantha Neal. Samantha goes by Sam. She's the owner of Coastal Maintenance Solutions. You can find her at services@cmstacoma.com or coastalmaintenancesolutions.com or 253-332-2255. Sam, welcome.
Thank you.
Folks listening are in
so
for
excited.
Yeah, folks listening today are in for a treat. You're one of the people that has more energy than I could possibly bottle up in my own body. That's for sure. So
I'll share.
super excited to have you on today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you own Coastal Maintenance Solutions,
I do.
and how long have you been in business?
I've been in business for a year and a half, since February 9th of last year.
Gotcha. All right. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And for those listening, we didn't schedule this way. Mark, who was on last week, owned a facility cleaning business for 40 years and has now sold that business and moved on to some other things. And you're kind of in the infancy of it. And so within a week, we got kind of the bookends here. So why did you start your business? Tell us about that.
I started my business because I have 2 kids and I was a property manager. I worked like 60 hours a week on somebody else's schedule and I missed my kids.
Yeah.
So I started this business because I could see them at least during the day, take them to school, and I knew that I could pick them up and spend that time with them because I would make my own schedule.
Right.
And that's initially why I did it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So you're in a year and a half. What are your feelings on it now? Are you still happy you did it? Or are you starting to think, what was I thinking? Where are you at with that?
I mean, of course we all have our moments of what was I thinking, but I'm actually really thankful that I did this because, I would say my plan for the kids, it didn't exactly work out the way I thought it would, but I've been able to do a lot of other things, within myself. I've become more confident. I've been able to help people get jobs. I've met so many different people like you.
Yeah, right.
And so I am really excited that I did it.
It's an interesting roller coaster, isn't it?
Yeah, and then it's like you get more goals every day because you see the different things you can do, and
Right.
I'm super excited.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So you mentioned you one of the things you want to do is be able to provide a job with a livable income for folks.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Why is that important to you?
It's important to me because, well, this is Washington. There's a lot of people struggling to make ends meet, and I, want people to be not just living paycheck to paycheck and figuring out how to make it happen, but have, money to actually take care of themselves.
Right. And we'll talk more later on today about the pros and cons of employing people and, and all that kind of. We'll get to some more of that stuff later on. So that was something that was really important to you, though. Starting out, was you wanted to be an employer that could provide those kinds of jobs. That obviously means something to you.
Yeah.
Tell us about your business now. Who's your customer now?
So my customer now are mostly new builders, like post-construction. I started out doing house cleaning, and then we transitioned to janitorial. And now the majority, I would say 80% of my business is post-construction cleaning, new construction cleanup.
Gotcha.
So that's my main focus.
So to be real clear for folks listening, Coastal Maintenance Solutions it's a janitorial cleaning company.
It is a janitorial cleaning company.
So when you first started out, your vision was not probably to do post-construction cleanout, right?
I didn't even know what it was.
Right.
Yeah, and then once I discovered it, especially the residential side, the new houses going up everywhere.
Right.
I fell in love with it. It's a lot of fun.
So who was your target customer when you first started?
When I first started, I wanted to do like small office spaces. Just teeny tiny, maybe, 2,500 square feet and under.
Right.
Once a week, at night so that I could spend the time with my kids or people could spend the time with their kids, whatever they want to do during the day. That was my ideal client.
Right. 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 And now, now that's less than 20% of your business.
Now that's less than 20%, and I feel like I run a business that is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So what prompted that change? Why the change in focus?
Um, I think it came to me. It kind of found me, the post-construction industry. And we took on one job and then, more started flowing in and it just became something that was a lot easier to manage as far as people and time and, clients' needs. It just fit what I didn't know I wanted more than the janitorial industry. And
Right.
so we just focused on it and
Right.
yeah.
So it's interesting for almost all business owners I talk to. When you start out, you have your vision, you have your idea what you're going to do, and then you fast forward 3 years and you're doing something completely different.
Right.
That's the case for us. We were we were in the plumbing industry. We were going to do only residential plumbing. We weren't going to do any commercial plumbing at all. And now 8 years later, our mix is roughly 93% commercial, 7% residential.
Right.
Nothing like what we had envisioned.
Yeah.
But we found our niche, and
Yeah.
and we found what works for us, and we found the customer base we liked, and they like us, and it's a good fit.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was gonna say. Once you build a relationship with the good customers, I mean, why change?
right, right, right.
Why?
So how'd you go about building those relationships?
How did I go about building those relationships? I started calling people. I like to talk to people.
Yeah,
I like to think I'm pretty friendly.
yeah.
So, someone like me with my pink hair and my holes in my jeans show up on a construction site and
You fit right in.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, I just kept going by. You bring donuts, you bring coffee, and all of a sudden you know about their kids and they know about your kids and they call you for everything. I mean, even on the way here, I got a call for a job tomorrow night from
Nice.
from someone that I've worked with just a couple of times just because there's a relationship there.
Right.
So yeah.
So it's interesting. You read a number of books about sales and the sales process and all the things that go along with marketing and recruiting and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it still always comes back to relationships. If you know the person's kids' names, it's a done deal,
It's a
right?
done deal. And the last one of the podcasts you did, he had a sales book.
Right.
And he talked about it's just a conversation. And that's so true. When we put pressure on ourselves, like, I have to do this many sales, I have to talk to this many people, then it just kind of becomes like that person is a number. And there's no way for you to put the energy into building that relationship. And they feel it. So
Right.
if you just say, maybe I want to build this many relationships, have this many conversations, and let them go wherever they're going to go, the sales will happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hard part, it's like going to the gym for most folks. I mean, once you're there, once you're in the middle of the conversation, it's a piece
Right.
of cake. The hard part is getting out and getting in front of those people, right?
Yeah.
So when I first met you, I don't know, it's been a year maybe or something like
Yeah.
that, a year ago. You and I spent some time talking about this, about
Yeah.
you wanted to, if I remember right, you wanted to hire somebody to do sales. Is that
Because
right?
I was scared.
Because you were scared. And I
Yeah.
said, you're the absolute worst person to manage a salesperson because you've never done this job, right?
Right.
And I've had that conversation with many folks. And my advice to you, I think, was you get out there and do the sales.
Yeah.
You get out there and do it and see what it's all about. And then if you decide to hire a person, you're at least qualified to manage that person.
Right.
So what did you learn through that whole process, from being too scared to go out and you wanted to hire somebody to do this icky thing you didn't want to do, to now it's just a breeze and you're out there just shaking hands and giving away donuts and learning people's kids' names? And what take us through that progression? How did that happen for you?
Well, how did it happen? I mean, initially when you first told me to start, I would drive around and kind of sit in the parking lot, find anything to do besides go in there and talk to the person. And, but you figure out that sometimes people just want to talk too.
Right.
And that's why, I learned that the relationship is important because, the first person sitting at the front desk, they could be having a bad day. And if you're just going in there just to say hi, just to show them who you are and get to know who they are, you don't have to tell them exactly what you're there for initially. You just keep coming.
Right.
So what I learned was, it's the first time is not the time to try to
Right.
make the sale.
Right.
That was what I learned.
Right.
Was, just build the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's how the transition happened. Now I can go in anywhere and talk to anybody because
So when you go in now somewhere the first time, now you're not trying to close a deal then.
right.
You have only a couple options that are really viable options at that point. Either you're just introducing yourself and, hey, by the way, I'll be stopping by from now on.
Yep.
You may not say that, but just let them know that you exist and your company exists and here's what we do and things like that. you're either prepping them for a follow-up for you to come again, or if they're really interested, you can get them to commit to meeting with you. And at that time, you
Right
can do
away.
your presentation.
Yeah.
But many folks who do cold calls fall in this trap of, I'm going to go knock on the door and I'm going to close a deal and I'm not leaving until I close a deal.
Yeah.
It's like, well, good luck with that.
Yeah, and say it's probably not going to work, but what does work is just listening to them. What do they need? Because they may not need your services right then, but when they do,
Right.
they will call you
Right.
because they know what you do, or they'll happen to ask, "What do you do anyways? Why do you keep
Yeah. Why do you
stopping?
keep stopping
Why
by?
do you keep stopping? What do you want?" And you tell them what you do, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, my friend needs whatever, whatever,"
Right.
and
then
that's a done deal.
right. And then you're off to the races.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it.
So how did you, so I'm, after in my career over time, helping many folks hit this wall, and
Yeah.
we call it the wall.
Yeah.
And my partner Eric, he
Yeah.
has great stories about when he first got into sales and I was his boss, and walking him through the wall. So you're sitting in the parking lot in the car, you're afraid to go in. What did you tell yourself to finally get yourself to open the door and walk in there?
Um, I did the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown.
Yeah.
And I just got out and did it. I just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I went in, and a couple times I fumbled. There was a few times I just handed them my card and basically walked
Bolted
out.
out, yeah.
But I kept 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. 5,
Right.
4, 3, 2, 1, go. And that's how I broke down the wall. And then
Yeah.
after messing up so many times, you just go back and they're like, "Why'd you drop off that card?" And
Yeah.
you tell them, and
Yeah.
so just the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And I think it's one of those things that this is an area where it's okay to be 100% transparent
Yeah,
and just say, you know what, I'm not very good at this.
Yeah.
I'm new at this. I just started my business. I'm not comfortable just walking up to people randomly and introducing myself. But this is something that's important that I know I got to do. And so I'm sorry if I'm not polished. I'm sorry if I'm not coming across like other people that come knocking on your
Right.
door. But you know what? I'm trying, and I think people will just really
It's
respect the
genuine.
fact that you try and you're
Yeah.
genuine and you're being honest. I think you can really get some mileage out of that, and just get people to understand this is what's going on. Yeah, I'm not the A1 salesperson that
Yeah.
just left your office 30 minutes ago, but you know what? I'm out here trying,
Yeah,
and I think people respect that.
yeah, they do, and they know you care.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think the other thing I told you when we met a year ago or so was I said, go to places where if you really screw it up, it's okay, right? I think I
Yeah.
told you to go like
And I did.
outlying areas, right? Like I said, so if your target customer is in downtown Seattle,
Yeah,
don't start in downtown Seattle.
Right.
Start somewhere in an outlying area where if you don't get the business, it's okay, but you're getting reps.
Yeah.
You're getting practice time, right?
yeah. I was gonna say it's like sports. You have to keep going.
Yeah.
Keep shooting the shot, shooting the shot, shooting the shot. You can do
Right.
it with your eyes closed.
Right.
Yeah.
And now look at you. Now you're
And
doing
everybody's
the
trying to
pass.
pass you the ball.
Right. Yeah. So another thing you mentioned is you've now got a bid system and a follow-up system that really works for CMS. So take us through that whole system. What's that look like for folks listening?
So once we build the relationship and we get the call, we bid. For instance, if it's construction sites, bid off of square footage. We get that information. We send them the bid, even if it's just kind of a cold lead. But we call. We'll send the email with our proposal because it was a cold lead, and then we'll call and see, who we need to talk to. Sometimes you get through and sometimes you don't.
Right.
So then you send another email with your proposal,
Yeah.
and then we call again. And if they're local, then I'll show up.
Right.
And just see, or I'll go onto the site and see, because our big thing is if you keep touching them, if you keep going, then eventually they will give in. So that's what has worked for us is the email call, show up,
Right.
send another email saying, it was so nice to talk to you, even
Yeah.
if you just handed them their card, because they're going to say, why is this person so persistent? What is
Right.
going on? And then once you get on the site, you just do spectacular work and you blow them away, and then they love it.
Yeah.
That's what's
absolutely.
really worked for us. I
Right.
mean, it sounds kind of simple, but that's
Sure. Well,
That's
I
it.
mean, I don't think anybody has an argument, like at least a compelling argument I've heard, that success is a complicated matrix of
Yeah.
algorithms. It's really come down. There's a few fundamentals. One is relationships, and persistence is certainly one. Doing a good job is certainly one.
Yeah.
I think if you hammer those three and you nail those three, you got a pretty good chance of being successful, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have confidence.
Right.
Yeah, because they don't know you.
Yeah, they don't know that you just started, right?
Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, they don't know how
Yeah.
many jobs you've done. But if you're confident, they might think you've been doing it for 30 years, right?
Right, right, right. So, one of the things we like to do on here is take the audience through somebody who's been in business for a while,
Yeah.
and what are some of the things that haven't gone so well for you. So you got a few wins under your belt. You're only a year and a half in, so that's pretty good to have a few wins like that. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You're still in business, which
Yeah.
they say if you make it 2 years, you got a pretty good shot. So
Okay.
you're only 6 months
Almost
away
there.
from there.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you now, as soon as you hit 2 years in one day, they're going to say, "Oh, well, really, it's really when you hit 5 years. That's when you know you've done it." And then when you
Oh,
hit 5 years,
man.
at 5 years in a day, they say, "Well, 10 years is really when you know you're gonna." So it's a moving target. So don't listen to those folks. They're always going to be telling you there's a chance you're not going to make it. Um, so some of the things you've learned along the way. One of the things you mentioned to me before was not reading contracts. Give us an example of how not reading contracts hurt you.
Oh man, how did it hurt me? So, in the construction industry, contracts can be pretty intense. I mean, a lot of times they have lawyers who review these things and
Yeah.
all of that. And when you're first starting out, when I was first starting out, I didn't have money for a lawyer. So,
Right.
I'm like, well, I mean, it's a master contract. If everyone else is signing it, then it's cool and you sign it. And then all of a sudden you're waiting for payment, waiting for payment. And you call them, hey, when's the payment? Well, we don't pay you until, everybody else is paid. That's what you signed in the contract. And
Right.
then you get the payment and they've held 20%. And you're like, well, why'd you hold 20%? Because we have to make sure that everything else is approved by. And so that has kind of, gotten me because, well, having payroll and I didn't read, and my employees don't want to hear
Yeah.
that I didn't read the
Yeah.
contract. So, and I had to figure that out. And so that kind of bit me, but it also taught me,
Right.
that you just have to pay attention.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Contracts is one of those things that it always sounds expensive to hire a lawyer for $500 an hour or whatever
Yeah.
lawyers are going for now. But if it holds up a $20,000 payment, that
Yeah.
$500 would have been a pretty good spend.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been a fantastic spend actually, because
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, and there have been situations where I've had to spend it anyways,
Right.
because you have to send letters and you have to, threaten liens and all those things. And nobody wants to do that.
Right.
You just want to have peace and joy and get it all done.
Yeah. Everyone wants to just feel good and get paid, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, make the investment first. That's
Right.
really what I learned. And
Right.
read.
Right.
If you can't read, Google something.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
something. Don't just sign it and be excited that you got the job.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And contracts is one of those things that there's certain companies and certain contracts that they're just like, hey, this is the way it is. Like when you buy a
Yeah.
house, if you don't like the contract when you buy a house, okay, don't buy a house. That's kind of your option, right?
Right.
When you're negotiating a contract though with a customer and they have a contract, things are negotiable. You can
Yeah.
read through there and say, well, it says I'm going to get paid 90 days after you get paid. Well, that's not going to work for me. And then we'll make changes.
Oh, yeah.
And so understanding what your needs are, understanding what the contract says, and having the ability to present that to them and say, this is what I need.
Right.
And then they may say no. And you might be thankful that they say no, because if it means you don't get paid for 6 months, or you only get paid 80% after 6 months, you get the other 20% after a year and a day.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for a lot of companies. And I
Right.
think people understand that. And one of the things that you have mentioned several times to me is the labor, what I call the labor cycle.
Yeah.
So you start out, you have a trouble with quality control, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about that. What's that look like when when you're having problems with quality control?
So when I've had problems with quality control, the main thing was that I was out doing the labor, doing the sales, sending invoices, managing the employees and thinking that I could just trust them to do their job. And so I wasn't going back and checking with them, which results in my customers complaining, which results in me doing the labor. And then, eventually probably having to fire the employee. But now I have 5 accounts complaining
Right.
that I'm going and I'm trying to do labor and hire people because I had to fire that person. And
Right.
so,
So
um,
let's back up. So you're stretched thin on time.
yep.
You're trying to do the sales, you're trying to do the invoicing, you're trying to read contracts now, you're trying to do all this stuff that has
Yeah.
nothing to do with cleaning.
Exactly.
And so you have to
And who knew
trust.
that when you started the
Right,
business?
right. Yeah. So who knew that the actual thing that you started the business to do would be
You
something you
won't
don't do, right?
Yeah.
Um, So you have all this stuff that takes your time and all this stuff that takes your attention away from the
Yeah.
actual task, the actual widget that you sell, in your case,
Right.
cleaning. And so you put people out there and you trust that they're going to do the right thing, and then they embarrass you and they disappoint you, right?
Yeah.
Because who knows why? There's a million reasons why. They
Yeah.
don't care, they don't understand. It's good enough for them, so it should be good
Mhm.
enough for everybody else in the world. Um, and then you kind of shift gears as the business owner and you say, well, I can't trust anybody to do anything anymore. I just got to do it all myself. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to be out on every job site. I'm going to make sure it's all up to my standards I sign off on this thing, right?
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar at all?
Yep.
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 And then
You're not growing.
now you're caught up in the labor side of the
Yeah.
business and you're doing the tasks and you're not improving, you're not growing. And then you decide to commit the time to do that. But along the way, you've taken all this time that you should have been spending on improving
Right.
and growing your business, and you're doing the tasks. So your business is stagnant. Then you get tired of doing that,
Yep.
right?
And
And
so
you
now
say,
you want to
now
do
I need to go
sales.
back and do sales, and I need to go fix my accounting. I
Yeah.
need to learn how this contract stuff works. And now you need these employees to do the job, and so now you're stuck with these employees longer than you want to be because you have to have the employees to do the
Yep.
job.
To get the labor
But
done.
sometimes they're out there embarrassing you,
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to go behind them anyways.
right?
Yeah.
So if you only had 38 hours in a day, you'd be all right.
And 6 Red Bulls. Yeah.
And 6 Red Bulls, right? So how have you coped with all that? So that's kind of the
Yep.
cycle. You they embarrass you. They do things you don't like. You go out there and try to fix it. Now you're stuck fixing it. Then you realize after weeks of that, you realize you're hurting yourself by doing that. And then you bounce the other way. And now you're counting on them, and you keep them too long, and you don't move along to somebody else who might do a better
So,
job.
so I pretty much cope with that by the advice you gave me about letting go, because I'm a little bit of a control freak.
Little bit, yeah.
Yeah, a
This
little
bubbly
bit.
personality it hides it for people who don't know
Right,
you very well, but
right.
about
I want to
16
know all
minutes
the
in,
details.
yeah, people can figure it out pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So a little bit of a control freak. So letting go, and I had to get someone who knew the industry. So I had to get what you told me is get it basically hire a supervisor. So it costs a little bit more in the beginning.
Hmm.
I had to make sure that I knew my finances. I had to make sure that I knew, the budget, and I could make sure they were happy. But what I have learned and how that's benefited me is they know the industry. They know, the work, the labor part of the industry, the work that needs to be done. And so when I check behind them, it's a little easier to hold them more accountable, but it's also easier to trust someone who has a resume of, 15 years
Right,
cleaning than someone who doesn't,
right,
And so you check behind them, it's easier to hold them accountable, and they also can help train other people, which takes some of the load off of you as long as you're paying them their worth and treating them, how they deserve to be treated, giving them something they can't get at more of a, what do they call, like a corporation, or, one of those big companies. So,
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So you found somebody who could be a supervisor and kind of run things in the field while you
Yep.
were doing everything else.
Exactly,
Right,
exactly. And then all I have to do is go check behind one person, because even though they are managing employees, they're in charge of those employees. So I'm going to check behind them. And if I have any questions, I ask them, and we get it
right,
resolved.
right.
And so it was an investment, like you told me it would be,
Yep,
but it helped, and it helped me be able to grow the sales and actually make more money.
sure.
Yeah.
So the reason I kind of hit this a couple times is for folks listening. I think there's tons of people who started a business who are selling their widget, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
product or service or whatever, and they find themselves in the exact same position where we need to increase sales, we need more customers. I'm going to hire somebody to do that, and I always tell people that that's the worst thing you could possibly
Yeah.
do. Hire somebody to manage the widget, the
Yeah.
product or service,
Yeah.
and you go out and do the sales
Right.
at least in the beginning. And for us in our business, one of the things that was key for us to grow as rapidly as we did is there was three of us, and then people
Mm-hmm.
have all kinds of opinions about partnerships and whether that's a good idea, not a good idea, blah blah blah. But the fact of the matter is, because there was three of us, we were able to break up those tasks, and we had folks who ran the product, the plumbing we do out in the field,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a person who did sales and accounting and all the other stuff that has nothing to do with plumbing. And had we not had that, there's no way, not any one of us could have done this on our own. There's no question.
Right.
So if you don't have that, it's critical to go find that person and you have to fight your instinct to find a salesperson. You need to find a person to run the product, and you go be the salesperson. Again, at least to start.
Right. And I was
Later
gonna
on, you
say, I
might change
think
your mind.
that's where, and you had helped me with that because I was thinking, and we touched on it earlier. So I was thinking, well, I'm gonna clean, and someone else can sell. And then once I started to get the sales, I'm like, okay, I can't clean and sell anymore. I'm gonna hire someone to clean, and like you said, it's that balance. So yeah,
Right.
it's just good to make the
So good.
investment in someone who knows.
Yeah. So you found somebody who knows and has kind of
Yeah.
helped you out of this. And now you're able to focus on what you need to focus on, which is growing and improving your business. And you've got that part pretty well stabilized in. Is that right?
Yep.
Good. 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 Something else you mentioned. You didn't have a CPA from the beginning. What? What? Tell us about that. Tell us about the joys of that.
The joys, oh my goodness, the joys like tax season, everyone's so excited and I'm like, what's the big deal?
Right.
That's the joy is not having a CPA is having to spend hours going back through receipts, having to explain to the new CPA everything that I think I've done but I don't really know. And just being able to fix it because in order for my company or anyone's company to grow, you have to know where your finances are and anticipate what you're going to be paying out, not just in taxes, but to employees. And you
Right.
can't anticipate that without a CPA.
Right.
Therefore, you can't grow.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you can, but if it crashes, it's probably going to crash pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the reasons why the 2 year rule, 80% of companies fail in the first 2 years.
yeah,
I think that's a big piece of it is, um, you have this money coming in, you have this money going out. This tax thing is this thing you hear about, and you're like, okay, yeah, I should probably deal with that later
oh,
on.
it's a
But
big
it's
deal.
always something later on.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, you got payroll due today. You got to buy supplies today.
yeah,
The tax person doesn't come to collect weekly or monthly. They come once a year,
yeah.
or quarterly sometimes, or monthly sometimes. After you've grown and
Mm-hmm.
you're putting more dollars into the coffers. Um, but folks defer this tax thing a long time,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden they wake up and they owe the IRS $100,000, and they're like, "Oh, well, I don't have $100,000," and
right.
the IRS doesn't care.
Nope.
They just come
They
take your
want it.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or even, even things with taxes, like I'm almost done with getting the WMB certification, the woman-owned business
Hmm.
certification, but they want to see that stuff.
Right.
And saying, "Oh, I didn't do it because I was busy." They don't care.
Right.
And so having a CPA, which is another thing of letting go, thinking that,
Yeah.
I could just do it in QuickBooks and, I want to know about my money. I want to know where it's at. So that was another thing in letting go, but um, it's already done. There's someone else to hold accountable for it.
Right.
Someone else that you're paying and
Right.
somebody who went to school for that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. There's a handful of things that you have to just accept your limitations.
Yeah.
Accounting is one. Taxes
Yeah.
are one. They're kind of sort of related, but they're also kind of exclusive to
Mm.
they're not exactly the same thing. Legal is one.
Yeah.
There's a handful of things you've got to just say, I'm not qualified to do this. I'm not going to go to school for 10 years to be a lawyer. I'm going to pay somebody $500 an hour to
Yep.
take care of this. Same thing with accounting, CPAs, taxes, all that stuff. I'm going to hire a professional. You tell me what to do, and I'll make sure it gets done.
Right.
And that's a lot easier than trying to figure it out on your own and being wrong.
Yeah, I'm saying being wrong. And then now you still have to pay out.
Yeah.
Because you have to fix it.
And if the business goes out of business, you still have to pay it.
Yeah.
You still have all that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned letting go a couple times. And this is one of the balances for people, especially in the beginning, but it really never goes away. There's the balance of having confidence in yourself and your decision-making abilities and your vision and all that kind of stuff and letting go.
Hmm.
And then there's also the balance of you've got, 100 people in your ear telling you how to do things, 99 of which have
Have
no idea
never
what they're
done
talking
it.
about. And then you've also got the part of you that really wants to ask for help,
Yeah.
but you're afraid to ask for help because you don't want people to know that you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Right. Right.
So you've got all that kind of mixture going around in your mind all the time. Take us through that. How's that work for you?
How does it work?
Or how does it work if it's better now than it was? How is it better now? And what was your experience with that? I mean, you've got your control freak.
Yeah.
You want to be in charge. You have to let go, but you have to also remain autonomous and make decisions. What's the balance for you? How do you know you're doing the right thing?
Now how I know is, well, I've started to listen to my instincts a little bit more on who to ask for help and who to listen to. But in the beginning, it's really hard because well, you don't know, and no one that around me had a business, but they all had an opinion on the business, and
Right.
I'm like, well, they've helped me, with other things in my life as far as, kids, working a job, balancing a schedule. Why not here?
Right.
And then, once it crashes and burns, you're looking at them like, what were you talking about? So,
Right.
and they're like, oh, sorry, I was guessing, and you're like, yeah, this isn't a
Yeah, this
good.
isn't a good thing to guess on.
Yeah, yeah. So I really had to learn to if you haven't done it, kindly thank you for your opinion. And then on the inside though, the self work is if I know someone has done it, let them know where I'm at
Hmm.
and will you help me? And most of the time people will. They want to help.
Right.
Someone who's experienced it, they probably had to bump their head and they don't want you to bump your head.
Right.
And so I had to really um
That's okay. It's a microphone.
I,
That's all right.
I had to, shed that skin or whatever, that break that wall down
Sure.
of nobody wants to help or they're gonna think, bad about me because I don't know what I'm doing. But it's all a journey and an experience, and
Right.
I had to have that positive self-talk,
Yeah.
do some affirmations and and get out there and start asking people and also start listening to the people who knew,
Right.
you know, um, to to actually get things done and not so much focus on the people who maybe have their heart in the right place but don't know,
Right.
to so that you don't hurt their feelings. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Sure.
You just focus on the people who know and have been there, and you do that.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's well, positive self-talk to answer your
Sure.
question.
Okay. Gotcha. So you're talking yourself up all the time, and
Yeah.
and you're being more selective now who you're listening to. So
Yeah.
so definitely you don't want to take advice from somebody who's got a smaller company than you in most cases, unless they've got a new company that's small and they had a big company that is doing what you're doing.
Right.
You want to talk to somebody who's at least a couple years down the road from you and getting advice. Now,
Yeah.
if you have somebody who's been in business 18 months like you have, and you guys do kind of sort of the same thing, and you get to there and brainstorm some ideas, that's okay. That's
Yeah.
still productive. But not taking advice from somebody who doesn't know
Right.
and politely telling them, thank you for your opinion, the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for your opinion. And you just, maybe change the subject.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's hard because again, we're torn in this constant being pulled in different directions of I don't know. All I can do is trust my gut. I don't know. I need help. I don't want to ask for help. And like you said, if you ask people for help, I think by and large people are pretty generous. And sometimes you have to pay for help. Sometimes
Yeah,
you have to
sometimes.
pay for a mentor and a coach, and
And
you have to
that's,
buy programs
yeah,
to learn some stuff. And those aren't necessarily bad investments.
that's
Those are
okay. Yeah, I'm
oftentimes good
saying that's
investments.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. And sometimes asking people for help, even though it may be intimidating,
Right.
asking.
What's intimidating about for you? Why is it intimidating to ask for help?
Well, so for example, like our relationship, so I just started, when we had met, maybe I think I had my business 6 months.
Right.
I was trying to figure out how to be profitable. And you're like, oh, just come talk to me. And I'm like, what? And I show up and it's just like, building and there's trucks everywhere and employees everywhere. And I'm walking in and I'm like, I'm here to talk to Brian.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and you think, well, what if people are looking at me like, why is she here? What does she do? And then you
Right.
get in there and like, I want to say the right thing, but I don't really know what to say. I don't even know how to ask the question that I want to ask.
Right.
And so it's intimidating because of mostly the self-talk,
Yeah.
like what this person, maybe they haven't been where I'm at, and I don't want to be completely honest, but what I've learned is being transparent is the best,
Right.
and they'll help you. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that if it would take a pretty cold-hearted person to have somebody come to your door and say, "I really just need some help here, and I don't know the first damn thing about what I'm doing," for
Yeah.
them to say, "Ah, it sucks to be you." I mean, it would take somebody pretty cold-hearted to
Yeah,
pull that
yeah,
off. I
yeah.
think by and large, folks are interested in helping other people,
Oh yeah.
and a person who's gone through, and you'll have this experience when you go through something that costs you tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
You don't want that on. You don't want to wish it on anybody. You
Right.
you wouldn't want that for anybody. Anybody who's out there hustling and trying and is trying to do the right thing and is persistent and all the things we talked about earlier. Anybody who's bringing that game, nobody wants to see them fail.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to see that person succeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now if you have somebody who's showing up and saying, "Oh, this is a bunch of crap. I open my business and I don't get customers," and you say, "Well, what have you
What are you doing?
what have you done to get customers?"
Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting for them to come in. Well, that person you're probably not going to help so much,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you get somebody out there who's really hustling. I think folks want to see that person do
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. Go get her mentality.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're gonna flip things around a little bit here. We don't
Okay.
normally do this, but you have the ability now for the next 10 minutes or so to ask me any questions you want to ask. So instead of me interviewing you, you ask me whatever you want.
Okay, great. I would like to know, how did you transition? So you have two partners.
We have there's four of us now.
Oh
We
yeah,
started out
yeah,
with three.
yeah.
So there's myself, Eric, Randy, and
And
Tammy. Tammy
Tammy.
came on as a partner this year. Yeah.
Yeah, well, congratulations, Tammy.
Yeah.
How did you transition from ground level to general manager? Like, how did you transition from door-to-door sales to, like what did it take to get to general manager?
Um, well, I was a general manager before that we
Uh-huh.
started our company, so it wasn't like foreign to me to do that job. I
Okay.
I had done it before, and it was just about where we were in the company. So when we first started out, the idea was I was going to do the accounting and the invoicing and the insurance and the legal and all that kind of stuff that I knew, and Eric and Randy were going to do the stuff in the field,
Hmm.
which they knew. Um, so I'm not as well versed certainly as they are. They're fantastic tradespeople. I know enough to get by.
Hmm.
Um, so the notion was never for me to be the person out in the field. Now, certainly there was times where we would have big projects and things like that, and it was a two-person job. Then I
Yeah.
would have to go out and help and things like that. And but as so we would do sale. We did the door-to-door sales that you've talked about. So for those of you who don't know, when we first started out, again, we were only going to do residential work. We weren't going to do any commercial. We light up the phones. The
Yeah.
phones don't ring. Big shock, like everybody goes through. And we panic and we begin doing door-to-door sales. And
Yep.
we did that for a couple of years. When I say door-to-door sales, we weren't selling vacuums. We were still selling our product. But
Hmm.
we went out, literally would park on the street and
And
hit every
knocking.
single business
Yeah.
on that street. And we did that for a few years. And what changed was as our business grew, um, different things became priorities. So when you have employees, HR becomes a priority, safety becomes a
Yeah.
priority, legal becomes a
Okay.
priority. All these things become a priority. And again, there's a handful of things like in your stage right now, sales is probably one of the biggest functions that you have in your
Yeah.
company. Not just for you, but your company, the
Yeah.
biggest challenge, the biggest stake you have is in sales. Well,
Yep.
that needs to be your job then.
Okay.
And as you grow, the owner's job needs to be to take on whatever is going to lead to the most success, has the biggest role, or has the biggest liability.
Hmm.
So HR is one of those things that if you mess it up, it could cost you $300,000. It could cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's not a big deal when you have three employees because the likelihood that that's going to happen is pretty small.
Right.
When you have 50 employees or 100 employees, well, those risks go up exponentially.
Oh
So
yeah.
the person who is in charge of everybody's well-being has to take on those tasks. So you don't have a choice. When you have
Hmm.
10 employees versus 35 employees, your priorities have to be different. You
Okay.
have to be able to find somebody to go do the thing, sales, like in your example we talked about. Once you've done that for a while, now you can manage somebody who can do sales. You can hire somebody to go do sales because you know what it's supposed to look like. You know what your vision of that is. You can mentor, train, hold somebody accountable to do that task. You need to be taking on then the things that are the bigger projects now.
So priorities, priorities,
Priorities.
priorities.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And the
Priorities.
and the owner doesn't have the flexibility or ability to say, I don't want to deal with this tough stuff. I'm going to hire somebody for that
Uh-huh.
because the tough stuff is what can put you out of business. So if you
Okay.
have no sales right now, that's going to put you out of business.
Oh
That
yeah.
has to be your job. When you have
Right.
50 employees, if you screw up something with insurance or legal or HR or those kind of things, it'll just put you out of business. So that has to be your job.
Okay. Sales. Got it. Priorities.
Right.
Got
Right.
it. Okay.
Whatever
So
whatever the least fun thing to do is, that's what your job is.
right. Okay. So why do you call yourself a general manager instead of the owner
There's a few
or one
reasons.
of the
There's a
owners?
few reasons. So again, if people ask, I don't hide it. Um, and I'm very proud to be an owner of the
Yeah.
company. I'm really proud of what we've built. It's a great place. We have fantastic employees, fantastic customers. I don't call myself the owner like on my business card or my email signature and things like that for a couple of reasons. The most important reason to me is, um, well, there's a few reasons, and there's a couple that I guess I'd be tied for the most important thing. Um, in the beginning, especially, if you say you're the owner of the company, people are going to temper their explaining to you how well your company is doing because they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Hmm.
No, I always use the example, nobody wants to say you have an ugly baby. Okay, but your business is your baby. But
Right.
if you have a child Like I was born, I was 12, I was over 12 pounds. I had all kinds of scars on my head and stuff like that, right? I was not a very
Cut
attractive
it
baby,
out.
right? But nobody's gonna tell my mom that she had an ugly baby, right?
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is. But if
Yeah.
you're the nanny, they'll say, "Oof, that poor kid, he's
Yeah.
gonna have a rough go," right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just you're going to get a different level of honesty
Okay.
based upon whatever title you assign yourself. So if you want to be called the owner, that's fine. But just understand your customers are not going to be nearly as honest with you in some cases as they will if you're just the manager. So, and again, I mean, people we do business with know I'm one of the owners, and I don't hide
Right.
that. And they're certainly very honest with me when we do things wrong and when we do things well.
Yeah.
But there's certain situations where that's not going to apply. Folks are going to temper what they tell you because they don't want to hurt your feelings, and I don't want that. I want people to
Yeah.
be honest with me. If we're
The
screwing
truth.
something up, I want to know. I want to fix
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
So I remove those obstacles where they're going to temper that. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is, quite frankly, in the beginning, and Randy pointed this out when we first started, he didn't want to be called the owner because he didn't want people working him for a deal.
Oh,
Our
yeah.
price is our
Okay.
price,
Yeah.
and if you can say, well, this is the price, I'm just one of the managers,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to say, well, come on, you can cut me a deal. If you're the owner,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to say, oh, come on, man, help me out here. You're the owner. You can, this is what you pay, everybody else pays, but this is when you're going to charge me because you're the owner and we're friends, right? So cut me a deal here, right?
Right.
So there's that angle, especially when you're starting out, that
Yeah.
you're going to have people make requests for you that they wouldn't make to anybody else because you are the owner.
Right.
And then the final thing is, I don't like having a hierarchy in our company where the owners are extra special.
Mm-hmm.
We're all there trying to do a good job.
Yeah.
And so, for me personally, this may not apply to a lot of folks. I would much rather call them call me the general manager because that implies to me more of a team atmosphere rather than an owner and employee, where owner has one goal, employees have a different goal. I want us all to have the same goal. I want us all moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
So that's much more of an altruistic kind of an answer, I guess. But that's kind of my philosophy on that.
Oh, okay. That's cool stuff. Okay. Do I get one more
You
question?
got, yeah, at least one more. Go ahead.
Okay, I have one more question.
All right.
Okay, how did you, from the beginning, because you're ripping and running and you're
Mhm.
trying to get the sales, and now you're at a place where you have employees and you have people to help out and all of those type of things. So when you're working, how are you mentally working? And when you're off, how are you mentally off? Like, how did that transition happen to where you're not working all of the time? Or
You're gonna have to find somebody more advanced than me to answer that question, probably, because my wife can tell you I have plenty of nights where I'm up until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning
Still.
trying to sleep and not being able to. I have to take specific blocks of time and go places where my phone doesn't work.
Okay.
So our business is 24/7. We're a 24/7 emergency service company. That's what we do. So if I go to a movie theater on Sunday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I might have to leave the movie to go answer my phone.
Right.
That's just the nature of our business. Now, not
Yeah.
everybody has that. Some folks are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and that's just how their business works. As far as shutting the brain off at night, if that's what you're asking about, that's still a challenge for me. I still have numerous sleepless nights in a month, and sometimes in a week. A few weeks ago, I went through a spell where I just could not stop thinking about things at 2 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
and I was taking sleeping pills, and that didn't work. I was just extra groggy in the morning, and my wife gets up at 3:30, and I would fall asleep at 2:30, and my alarm would go off at 5:30 or whatever,
Oh my goodness.
and meanwhile I took a sleeping pill, and I'm just dog tired,
Yeah.
and drinking coffee as fast as I can. So I don't think that I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
Again, our business is 24/7, so it's a little. I always have to have my phone with me.
Yeah.
So I pick blocks of time. I enjoy going on a cruise, for instance, and not buying the Wi-Fi package because I can say my phone's not going to work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be available.
Yeah.
And I enjoy going to a place up by Lake Cushman. We have a cabin up there where there's no cell service up there. And I like making a big pronouncement on Friday. I'm not going to be available this weekend, and I'm going to go up there and I'm going to try
Yeah.
my ass off to not think about work. So I can't
So it
can't
has
say
to be intentional.
I do have to do it intentionally.
Yeah.
For me, I have to say I'm going to commit this time. And so, like a couple weekends ago, my wife and I went up. We took a boat up to out on the Sound for a couple days. We stayed the
Yeah.
night in Paulsbo for a night. We stayed the night in Port Ludlow, and I was driving this boat in the ocean, and that took all of my attention. I mean, there's ferries coming, and there's freight boats coming. There's
Yeah,
these big
yeah.
ships and stuff. You got to kind of be paying attention to what's going on there, so you
Yeah.
don't sink. And I found myself, even though I was tired from having to focus on that, I was really refreshed in that I wasn't thinking about work all weekend, which is normally kind of how I do it. So
Right.
I would say find something that takes detailed attention.
Hmm.
So you have to think about that and not work. And then for me, I block out
Turn the phone
periods of
off.
times where I just say I'm not going to be available. And again, that's the benefit of having 3 or 4 of us
Yeah.
is I can say I'm not available this weekend. You 3 got it. They can say they're not available that weekend, and I'm one of the 3 that got it.
Yeah.
And it all kind of works out.
Oh, okay. Cool. Those are my questions.
That's it. All right.
That's
Well,
it.
those are pretty simple. I'm glad that I was able to answer those. And it wasn't a super complicated accounting calculation type of question or something like that. I would have
No.
blown that one for sure. Hey, guys listening, again, Sam Neal here, owner of Coastal Maintenance Solutions. You can reach them at services@cmstacoma.com or coastalmaintenancesolutions.com or 253-332-2255. Sam, thanks a lot for coming on. You're a lot of fun.
Thank
I hope,
you.
yeah.
This was so fun.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
was great.
Good for you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you came
Yeah.
on. And for those of you listening, again, you can reach me at brian@brianlharding.com or go to brianlharding.com or growingyoursuccessfulbusiness.com. Next week, we're going to have on Kenneth Bath, and he's going to come on and discuss what he calls his radical ideas on employee engagement and retention. And next week's going to be a lot of fun. Kenneth, we talked about people don't want to tell you have an ugly baby. Kenneth was the first person to ever tell me that this podcast was boring. So I mean, I'm really excited to have Kenneth on, and
He has to watch my episode.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Yeah, it totally changed his mind. So we'll have him on next week, and he'll see if he can teach me how to be more entertaining. He's a lot of
Yeah.
fun, and he does have some radical ideas, but I think it's something we can all learn from.
Yeah.
That's all for today, guys. Thanks again for listening. Thank you again,
Thank
Sam,
you.
for coming on. It was a lot of fun having you here, and we'll talk to you all next week.